The sun over Fort Bexley wasn't just hot, it was punishing. It scorched the tops of tents, shimmered off Humvee roofs, and turned every step in the sand into a slow burn. Soldiers were used to it. They moved like machines across the training yard, their boots pounding the dirt with rhythm and purpose. Gunfire echoed from the firing range, sharp, deliberate, methodical asterisk, but off to the side, standing just outside the perimeter fence, was someone who didn't quite belong. Amara Fields, 13 years old, no rank, no name tag. Just a worn pair of boots, an oversized army t-shirt tucked into camo pants borrowed from her father's locker, and a fire behind her eyes that made grown men pause. Her black braids were pulled tight and neat, but her stance was relaxed calm. Unshaken, she wasn't here on accident. Every Saturday for the past year, her father, Master Sergeant Raymond Fields, brought her with him to the base. Most kids her age would have found a bench in the shade or buried their face in a phone. Not Amara. She sat on the bleachers, notepads in hand, scribbling wind direction, bullet drop, shooter positions, even predicting when a cadet would miss a shot. She didn't talk much, but she listened to everything. Asterisk, she knew the difference between a flinch and a recoil. She understood why soldiers breathed out before pulling the trigger. She even knew when they were aiming too soon, compensating out of panic. She never touched a rifle herself, but in her mind she'd already fired thousands. Asterisk today. She didn't want to sit anymore. Asterisk Amara walked slowly toward the center of the range, ignoring the heat and the sideways glances. Her eyes were locked on Colonel Hargrove, a mountain of a man with a square jaw, silver buzz cut, and a chest full of ribbons that told stories she'd never hear. He stood like a statue, watching his cadets rotate through drills. A living embodiment of command. "Sir?" she called out, loud and steady. He turned slowly, one eyebrow lifted. The soldiers nearby looked confused. Some grinned, amused. The sight of a teenager approaching their commanding officer like she had any business doing so, it was comedy to them. Amara stood her ground. "I'd like to request permission to use the range," she said, without hesitation. Asterisk, there was a beat of silence. The kind that feels like a sound vacuum, sucking the air out of the room even though they were outside. Asterisk, then the colonel laughed. Asterisk, a deep, rolling belly laugh that turned heads all across the field. "Use the range?" he said, still chuckling. "Are you serious, kid?" Amara nodded once. "You want to step into a live-fire Navy SEAL sniper range?" His tone was somewhere between disbelief and mockery. "What do you think this is? A video game?" Asterisk, she didn't blink. "No, sir. I've studied the drills. I've observed the patterns. I understand the wind flow. I can shoot?" Asterisk, the soldiers around them started whispering. A few chuckled. One leaned over and muttered, "This'll be quick." Asterisk, the colonel shook his head. "You ever fired a weapon before?" Asterisk, "No, sir." Asterisk, "Then how the hell do you think you're qualified to do anything out here?" Asterisk, her voice didn't waver. "Because I've trained longer than most of your cadets, just not with bullets." That line silenced even the whispers. The colonel crossed his arms. "You really believe that?" Asterisk, "I don't believe it, sir. I know it." Asterisk, there was something in her eyes. Not arrogance, not disrespect, just pure, focused conviction. The kind that could cut through doubt like glass through paper. Asterisk, Colonel Hargrove stared at her for a moment longer, then smirked. He turned toward the range and gestured. Asterisk, "Lane 6, let's see what you've got." Asterisk, and just like that, the laughter died down, the mood shifted, no one expected anything. But they were all watching. Asterisk, Amara didn't look back. She simply walked to lane 6 and picked up the M110 rifle like she'd carried it her whole life. Asterisk. She wasn't there to prove herself. She was there to prove the world wrong. Amara stood quietly at lane 6. The rifle rested on a sandbag in front of her, an M110 semi-automatic sniper system. Standard issue for long-range SEAL snipers. Deadly. Unforgiving. Built for trained warriors. Not teenage girls in borrowed fatigues. She didn't flinch. The heat shimmered above the barrel. Dust stuck to her skin. But inside, she was ice. She slid into prone position like she had done it 1,000 times. Elbows firm, body low, stock tight against her shoulder. Her breath was steady, like it had trained for this very moment. She adjusted the scope, checking elevation. Adjusted again, wind drift to the left, just over 3 knots. Her fingers moved like they belonged to someone twice her age. Asterisk behind her, soldiers gathered. Some pretended to be uninterested, but their eyes were locked. They'd seen amateurs freeze up before. They expected her to tremble, to flinch, to misfire. But Amara was still, a living statue. Asterisk, she lined up the first target 700 meters out. Standard sealed distance. The black steel silhouette stood quiet under the sun. Asterisk, her father's voice echoed in her memory. Exhale. Don't pull the trigger. Squeeze it like you're holding a breath you never want to let go. Asterisk, she did exactly that. Asterisk, the shot rang out. Crisp and clean. Ping. Center mass. A few soldiers looked up from their smirks. She didn't react. She cycled the bolt, realigned, and fired again. Ping. Then again. Ping. 5 shots. 5 hits, all inside the kill zone. Asterisk now. The whispers began to change. Asterisk, yo. Is this real? Asterisk, she's not even adjusting between shots. Asterisk, she's better than Jenkins, and he failed sniper quals last week. The colonel stood behind her, arms folded, jaw tightening. Next lane, he said to the range assistant. Give her the moving dummy. Asterisk, they activated a side rail where a black mannequin on motorized track began to move sideways 800 meters, speed fluctuating between 5 to 8 miles per hour. SEALs train weeks for this drill. Asterisk, Amara shifted slightly. No panic. No wasted. Movement. Her finger danced. Ping. Asterisk, right shoulder. The dummy jerked back and continued. She fired. Again, ping, center chest. Then again, ping, headshot. The watching group went silent. Asterisk, someone slowly put down their protein bar. Another lowered his sunglasses. She wasn't just hitting targets, she was dissecting them. The range assistant looked at the colonel. Sir? She just passed the SEAL evaluation scoring threshold. Asterisk, Hargrove didn't answer. His face had gone still. Give her target 11, he barked. The farthest pop-up, rotating metal plate, set at 1,100 meters. Most SEAL cadets miss it on their first 5 tries. Asterisk, she readjusted. Lay flat again. The light had changed slightly, glare reflecting. Off the plate, asterisk, she closed her left eye, aligned the reticle, and breathed out. A long, deep exhale that felt like she was releasing every doubt ever thrown at her. She fired. The shot echoed longer this time, like the desert wanted to carry it. A half-second later clang, dead center. The colonel didn't move. She sat. Up stood, slowly removed her ear protection, and looked at him. Asterisk, was that enough, sir? He stared past her, toward the screen displaying her shot pattern. It was perfect. Tighter grouping than most certified instructors. Wind-corrected, dead-aligned, repeatable. Asterisk, he muttered something under his breath. Only the assistant heard it. Asterisk, she. Just beat 2 SEAL records on her first day. Amara didn't smile. She simply placed the rifle down gently, the way a warrior returns a sword to its sheath. Asterisk, and then she turned and walked away, not like someone who won, but like someone who was never here to lose. Fort Bexley didn't talk much. Soldiers here were trained to keep their heads down, focus forward, and let their performance speak louder than their mouths. Asterisk, but that Monday morning, her name was everywhere. Amara Fields, not Sergeant Fields' daughter, not the kid with a pencil in the bleachers. Asterisk now. Just Amara. Asterisk in the chow hall, recruits whispered about the girl who showed up with no uniform, no license. No fear then walked away with more confirmed hits than half the elite squad. In the gym, someone tried to mimic her shooting posture using a broomstick and got laughed out of the room. Even the janitors had something to say. Asterisk, you see that little girl with the rifle? Asterisk, she smoked every record like it was nothing. Asterisk, I heard the colonel didn't say a word for a full hour afterward. And that part was true. Colonel Hargrove had stood in his office with the footage looping on his monitor. Amara adjusting, breathing, squeezing, clean, clinical, unshaken. He forwarded the file up the chain. Subject, unregistered civilian. Range results enclosed, asterisk attached was a clip of the grouping pattern, annotated with timestamps and metric overlays. At the bottom, he typed a single sentence, recommend further evaluation. She is not ordinary. Asterisk meanwhile, Amara returned. The next weekend like nothing had happened, asterisk no press. No attention, no entitlement, asterisk she didn't brag. She didn't pose for photos. She came in the same worn boots, same oversized fatigues, same quiet hunger in her eyes. But this time, the eyes watching her had changed. Asterisk where there was once amusement. Now there was caution, where there was once laughter, now there was respect. And for some, there was fear. Asterisk a few soldiers avoided her altogether. Their egos couldn't survive being outshot by a teenager. One staff sergeant even requested to switch firing times so he wouldn't have to be on the range when she was, asterisk, but others. They leaned in. Asterisk a SEAL recruit named Morris, 2 weeks from graduation, approached her quietly after drill, asterisk, how'd you learn that kind of control? He asked, asterisk Amara shrugged. I paid attention. Asterisk, you ever train for suppression fire? Asterisk, nope. Asterisk, you wanna? She looked at him. Only if you're ready to lose. Asterisk, they spent 3 hours side by side, hitting speed plates and braking. Down reaction windows? Morris held his own but barely. When he missed the 6th plate and she didn't, he laughed and shook his head. Asterisk, you're scary, kid. Asterisk, no, she replied calmly, reloading. I'm prepared. Asterisk even, the simulation tech started using her movement as reference footage for training modules. The AI system flagged her responses as non-standard, high efficiency, and A. Lieutenant Colonel asked for copies, asterisk within 2 weeks. Amara's technique was being analyzed by instructors across 3 different bases. And she still hadn't fired more than 50 rounds in her life, asterisk. Then came the call from command. Asterisk Hargrove received a sealed packet marked confidential, Tier 1 evaluation. It came from Naval Special Warfare Command. Inside was a request for observation, clearance to access advanced simulation software, and a list of drills to be run under quiet supervision. The colonel stared at it for a long time. And then, without speaking, he called her father into his office. Asterisk, Raymond, he said, folding his hands. Your daughter isn't just good. She's elite. We're going to put her through something unique. Master Sergeant Fields, a man who had trained warriors for over 2 decades, nodded once. She's ready, he said. But you better be too. Because everyone on that base was starting to understand. This wasn't just a talented kid, This was someone who would rewrite the rules. 3 weeks after her name spread like wildfire through Fort Bexley, Amara Fields stepped onto a private airstrip with no cameras, no fanfare. Just a sealed envelope and instructions to board a black transport vehicle marked only with a military crest. Asterisk. Destination. Classified. Asterisk. She didn't ask where she was going. She didn't ask who called her. Asterisk. Because she already knew when power moves in silence. It usually means someone important is watching. Asterisk. The vehicle drove for nearly an hour before pulling into a remote naval facility. No signs. No flags, just high fences, towers, and men with rifles who didn't smile. A place not meant for visitors. A place where the next generation of war was built in shadows. Asterisk inside the facility. Amara was escorted through sterile halls, past steel doors and reinforced glass. Her boots squeaked on the tile. Her heartbeat didn't asterisk at the end of a corridor. A double door opened to reveal a large simulation room, circular dome ceiling, filled with screens, tracking sensors, and military brass seated behind one-way mirrors, generals, commanders, analysts, all gathered for one reason, to see if the myth was real. A tall man in plain uniform greeted her without a smile. His tone was neutral but heavy with weight. Asterisk, Amara. Fields? Asterisk, yes, sir? Asterisk, you understand this is an evaluation, not a game? Asterisk, I'm aware. Asterisk, we're not testing your aim. We're testing your judgment, your timing, your decision-making under threat. She simply nodded. The room dimmed. Asterisk from above, projectors activated, casting a 360-degree combat simulation around her. Real-time battlefield. Enemies moving. Wind patterns shifting, sudden noise bursts. Innocent bystanders embedded, everything controlled. Everything unpredictable. Asterisk. She was handed a simulation rifle linked to the system weighted like the real thing. No second chances, every move recorded. Asterisk. Then it began. Asterisk. She dropped to one knee instantly, scanned the left perimeter, adjusted her scope, then pivoted right without hesitation. Bang, enemy down, bang, two more. Asterisk. She moved low across cover like water. The generals watched her screen in silence. Sir? One whispered, she's clearing entry points faster than our Black Ops recruits. Asterisk. She's not just accurate, another added. She's thinking 3 steps ahead. Amara hit 17 targets in 42 seconds. She never broke rhythm. Asterisk. Then the system threw her a curveball. Smoke burst. Simulated injury, sound distortion. Asterisk. She paused, adjusted breathing, switched eyes. Bang, another target neutralized. Asterisk. When the test ended, the room lit up again. Amara placed the rifle down, calm as ever. Asterisk. No applause. No celebration. Just the cold sound of data being collected. Asterisk. Outside the room, 2 admirals stared at the footage on a tablet. Asterisk. One of them said, she's 13. Asterisk. The other replied, and she's out shooting our instructors. Inside, the commanding general entered quietly. You understand who we are? He asked her. Asterisk. She nodded. Special Warfare Command. Asterisk. You understand what we do? Asterisk. Yes, sir. Asterisk. He studied her a moment. What do you want, Amara? She looked him straight in the eye. I want the next girl who walks into your world to never be laughed at again. There was silence, the kind of silence that falls when the truth is heavier than the rank in the room. Asterisk. He handed her a small pin. No medal, no certificate, just a symbol. We'll be watching, he said. Asterisk. She took it. Pocketed it. Asterisk. Didn't smile, didn't gloat. Because for her, this wasn't the finish line. This was just the next lane on the range. Training. The only female in her division. The only one who never failed a single trial. Her name was now on mission boards, debriefing files, blacked out. Memos that most would never see. But back at Fort Bexley, the place where it all began, there was something else. Plaque, bolted into the concrete wall beside lane 6. Let her shoot. Call Hargrove. That quote had become legend. A phrase spoken in every room where arrogance tried to silence ambition. And now the girl behind the quote was returning home, not as a visitor, but as a symbol. Amara stepped off the transport vehicle in full SEAL combat gear. She moved through the base with the same silence she had as a kid, but now, the ground almost felt like it moved for her. Recruits stopped. Mid-push-up to look, instructors adjusted their caps. Some had only heard stories. Others had watched the grainy footage. But none of them had seen her in person, and then she entered the range. Same sun, same dust, same firing lanes, but this time no one laughed. No one smirked. Colonel Hargrove, now retired, stood near the bleachers. His hair thinner, his frame a bit slower, but his eyes were still sharp. He saw her coming from a distance and removed his cap. Not out of courtesy, out of respect. Colonel, she said softly. He nodded. You came back. She looked around. The range had to. You know, they still talk about that day, he said, almost chuckling. The girl with no badge, no permission, and the steadiest hands I've ever seen. I wasn't trying to prove anything, she replied. I just needed to be heard. And now they listen, he said, stepping back. Without another word, Amara walked to lane 6. She didn't warm up. Didn't stretch. She set her rifle down with the same care she did as a child, slid into position. Adjusted the scope. This time the targets weren't for training. They were for demonstration. A new generation of cadets stood behind her, waiting to see the legend come alive. One target, 1,000 meters. Amara exhaled and fired. Ping. 2 more, side by side. Rotating. Ping. Ping. She hit all 5 in under 8 seconds. She stood, dusted herself off, The silence that followed wasn't stunned. It was sacred. She walked back toward the crowd where one young girl, no older than she once was, stood clutching a notebook, eyes wide, hands trembling. Amara smiled, not big, not showy, just enough to say, "I see you." Then she leaned in and whispered, "You ready to shoot?" The girl nodded, almost in disbelief. Amara turned to the watching instructors. "Give her a lane." There was no hesitation. They moved aside like the Red Sea parting for purpose. And just like that, history circled back to the place where laughter once ruled. Now, silence made space for greatness. As Amara walked off the range, a new voice behind her called out, "Ma'am, what do we call this drill?" She paused, looked over her shoulder, and said simply, "The part where she stops asking for permission."